Everybody can make your way back and find your seat. We're going to get started here with our self-directed IRA panel. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the ice cream. I know there was plenty left, so there'll be some for the welcome reception we'll probably have. And if not, you can come by my room and there'll be some leftovers there. All right, room 30. No, I won't give you the room number. All right, but anyway, this is always one of the most well-received panels during the NoteExpo, and it's the panel we have on self-directed IRAs. So we are going to have Martha Speed be the moderator. Martha, take it away.
Thank you. All right, let's see. Oops. Okay, there we go. Thank you for joining us today for the IRA panel. One of the things that we want to do during NoteExpo is to help you guys, all of our investors, efficiently add more notes to your portfolio and grow your portfolio. And so please go down and visit with all of our custodians that are here today. If you have questions about what type of account's best for you, maybe you haven't gotten yours started yet, they can answer all your questions. You can talk to them about what fees are involved and those kind of things that we can't discuss here because that's so individualized for you. So please go visit with them and get your accounts open. So I'd like to get started, and we would like for everybody just to take a few seconds and just introduce yourself and your company. Would you like to go first? Okay, go ahead, Nathan. Why don't you start first?
Hey, everyone. My name is Nathan Long. I'm the president of Quest Trust Company. Thank you guys for coming. This is a great event.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you so much to you and Eddie and Bob for the opportunity to be here. My name's Glenn Mather with New View Trust. We're located in Orlando, Florida. So it's a great place to hold your IRA because you can come visit it at least once a year during the cold times.
My name is Jeff Watson. I'm an independent attorney that limits my practice to representing self-directed retirement account owners and holders.
I'm Jack Kiley. I'm from Mid-Atlantic IRA. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys. It's good to see a lot of clients and old friends in the audience, and we're in Washington, D.C.
Hi, my name is Janet Moore. Obviously, don't tell me I look anything like Travis. His plane didn't make it in, so I'm filling in. So please be nice. I'm with the IRA Services Trust Company. We're based out of San Carlos, which is in the San Francisco, California area.
Thank you. Hey, Janet, why don't you start for us and tell us a little bit about, as the IRA account holder, like myself, what am I responsible for? And tell us a little bit about the responsibilities and what the custodian actually does.
Okay, well, that's easy. As an IRA account holder, it's a self-directed account, so you're basically responsible for everything, finding the investment, doing your due diligence, and making sure the paperwork is in order and that you get it to the custodian. As a custodian, we basically provide all the administrative services that are required of an account holder, such as looking for prohibitive transactions, making sure all the documentation is completed, obviously making the transaction, then we track the investment, provide statements, and also an annual evaluation at the end of the year to the IRS.
Right, and the account holder is going to give you basically at the end of the year, an evaluation, and then you're going to review it, and then you report it to the IRS.
Right, that evaluation comes from the account holder.
Right,
yes.
It does come from the customer, so that's something that you have to be prepared to do at the end of the year. Nathan, tell us a little bit. So should you use, one of the things that you can do as an account holder is you can invest in an entity. So tell us a little bit, Nathan, about should you use an entity in an IRA, and if so, tell us a little bit about the different entities, the problems you might encounter, and what would the solutions be?
I love this question, and it's really good because Jeff is over there itching in his chair to be the one to answer it. I could see the attorney in him. You want this one, don't you?
I want to watch you answer this one because so much of what I have learned has come from your brother and you that I just want to watch the master. By the way, congratulations on Quest Trust as of yesterday. And I just want to watch the master answer this very good question.
Can I tell him our secret is that you're our newest Questie because you joined our board of directors at Quest Trust when we became a trust. So we really appreciate it. It was the longest board meeting in the world. Too many attorneys. So I think that's a good question, and you get it a lot, and I'm sure Glenn want to chime in here too and stuff because it's really important. What type of entity should I use? I hear a lot of people talk about checkbook control, IRAs, and all types of other things. And I think that if you want to try to throw a blanket across the answer, you're going to actually have a problem because this is definitely not a one size fits all. And so many people over the years have moved towards the checkbook control thing. And I think before you can answer the question, you've got to take a look at two things. You've got to look at why you need it, and you have to understand the problems that you have so that you can develop the solutions to the different problems that you have. So the real problem I have when we're using entities is let's talk about why you would want to use an entity rather than direct purchase of a note or something. There are some really good reasons. One of the reasons is it can make the deal faster because you're in control of it, right? Another one is it can cut down on your IRA fees you pay to your custodian. Boo. All right, good for you, bad for us. But if you're doing a lot of notes, you know, and you're only holding one asset, most custodians charge per asset or in that thing, you can have one asset in there and just pay a flat fee, and because you're doing a lot of the transactions, it could take it. And those are another reason I hear somebody, you know, that they want some asset protection in there. So I want to talk about the different things that you have to do is you have to understand your real need for it. Let's talk about the dangers for just a second. Am I going too long already? All right, there are dangers that are associated, and it comes down to the disqualified persons. There are people who are disqualified from doing business with the IRA. They can't buy, sell, trade, or extend services. And a brief listing of those people are the IRA owner, their spouse, their lineal ascendants and descendants, their spouses, and here's the kicker. Companies that those people own, control, manage, or highly compensated by. So if you take an LLC, let's say, and you put it in there, and you make the managing member you, the IRA owner, I could make an argument that that's a prohibited transaction, all right? Now, people have been doing this for a long, long time, and I hear all things, oh, Bob's done it forever, and it's worked well for Bob. You know, well, I don't know if people realize this, but the IRS is kind of out actively looking for money right now. Is anyone aware of that fact? That's what they like to do. And they kind of give us, you know, some hints as to directions are going. As of this year, we have to report things differently, you know, because they want to know about hard to value fair market values. So as we turn in our 5498s, they're looking for two additional things. They want to know if it's real estate, and they want to know if it's a single manager LLC. I'm just saying, I think they're gathering that information for a reason. I would be much more in tune or frightened of using one of these checkbook control LLCs. So there's the problem. That's what I see as the problem, okay, is the disqualified person. So let's look at the solutions, and the solutions would depend on whether or not or what you need. First of all, if you're buying one note or two notes a year, I would say scrap the entity idea. It doesn't make sense. I'm just got an IRA, I just want a couple of notes in there. They're long-term notes, I'm holding them. Don't put an entity into it. Let the IRA custodian directly buy it. Over the years, most of us have gotten very, very efficient at doing this. I know we do a lot of notes at Quest, and it will probably save you the most. You don't need the asset protection. The IRA's already kind of got it asset protection by itself. If you want to use an entity like an LLC or a trust, I have no problems with trusts. Some states that can be difficult to use, but like in Texas, they work really well. If you want to use a trust or an LLC, the managing member shouldn't be you. You should get that distance between you. It should be somebody other than you or your spouse or your children or parents or their spouses. It's got to be someone else. As
and
long
I
as we get that
would
level
even
of
say, adding to that, maybe not an employee.
Right.
Like really make it somebody that's disconnected to your business.
Yes, somebody that's disconnected and somebody that you trust too. You know, so that could be an issue. But another solution that some of us can use, a limited amount of people could use something like a solo 401k.
Right.
where you do have to be careful because you want to make sure that you legitimize it, but then you could have checkbook control, and you could put the entity in there and even be the managing member
We're going
of
to
that
talk about
entity
that too in a minute.
in the
Okay.
differences in there.
All right, thanks, Nathan. All right, Jack, can you talk a little bit and tell us a little bit about what you find or what you see are the biggest challenges for people that are, maybe getting started with self-directed IRA, or even if they've been account holders for a while, like what are the challenges you see? And maybe specifically towards notes, if you have some things in mind about notes and how you guys address the challenges.
Well, I think the biggest issue that we really see is that especially people who are new, they're trying to do two things that they're not familiar with. One is purchase an asset, an alternative asset, in this case a note, and then secondarily they're trying to do it in a retirement account, which for most people they haven't come across self-direction. So you're trying to learn two new things at the same time. The biggest challenge I think for most people is they don't know when they have all the paperwork together many times. So a lot of providers don't want to see any of the paperwork until you have it all together. And of course, these tend to be time-sensitive transactions. So there's a big sort of fire drill at the end. So it's helpful to be in contact early if the if the custodian or administrator will help you out to get the paperwork done and ahead of time, because waiting to the last minute is challenging for all of us.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. So, since you mentioned it, I do want to say it. Education is the key. When you open these accounts, go to workshops, go to anything that's offered, so that you understand how they work and understand, like what you need to do on your part, what the custodian's going to do, what's prohibited. I mean, you need to go educate yourself to grow this account. So, let's talk just a little bit, Jeff, about foreclosure. So. What do you see in regard to, if someone has a foreclosure, how should they handle it? What services do you guys offer in regard to helping them with that?
It's a great question, Martha. I'm going to back up. A lot of times I'm seeing note holders get into foreclosure situations because they really didn't understand the asset that they were buying.
Okay.
And they didn't do their due diligence correctly. And so I've started to add that as another component of service that my firm now offers. The second thing that I see is the question of, should I go ahead and do the foreclosure inside my IRA that bought the note because I'm just doing one or two, all of a sudden one went wrong? My response to that is, I'm okay with you using your IRA to go ahead and do the foreclosure, because that's the account that's easiest to put the contributions in to fund the cost of the foreclosure if you have to. Mm-hmm. And secondly, the chances of getting countersued are really slim in that situation. That does happen because you didn't get your paperwork in order. You might have a gap in the chain of title. There's a case that's working on right now with the gentleman here in the audience. We figured out how to bridge the gap, by the way. It took just a little bit of our time to do that. So if you've got an IRA that owns a note that's going to have to go to foreclosure, I would recommend that you double check your paperwork. Make sure you find good, competent legal counsel to do the foreclosure, not a mill. If you're struggling for help, reach out. We can help you with that. We can connect you with somebody in that area, in that state that does it. I don't do any foreclosures. I just know great, smart people that do. And then get it done as quickly as you can. But hire an expert and make sure you got the money to do it and go from there.
Right, okay. Glenn, let's talk a little bit about checkbook control, because that's always a hot topic. So tell us a little bit about, what's deemed administratively feasible. In other words, really, what are the advantages, disadvantages? Tell us a little bit about, from the custodian point of view, I know a lot of them have gone to online platforms, and, it's totally different logging in and doing some things as opposed to actually having checkbook control.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank my friend Nathan Long for already attacking that subject really well. And I also want to thank Nathan and his company for buying us lunch. Did you guys enjoy Nathan's lunch? Yeah. Give him a hand. No.
Hang on. I was just going to say, I'm vegan, and it's the most pot roast I've ever bought.
All right, Nathan, you've had your time at the mic. All right, here we go. For the first 5 years, our company's been around for 15 years. For the first 5 years, we did not custody checkbook control IRAs. And the reason for that was nothing more than I didn't really understand it. I had to get a lot of advice and counsel from people that did. And I came to the realization that my responsibility as a custodian is to give our clients freedom. It's freedom in the gray areas, not just the black areas. But here's what happens. With freedom comes responsibility. I understand what my responsibility is. It's to hold the assets, it's to help them get titled correctly. It's to keep your account from getting taxed until it legitimately is taxed. That's my responsibility in lots of educational classes, and I know that some of the other fellow companies here spend a lot of time on education. We do that because we want our clients educated. But make no mistake, it's self-directed. So what the responsibility is shifted from the custodian to you. But let's face it, we're not all equipped to understand all the legal issues and the tax issues. And that's why you find people that can construct the LLC in the proper way. So in other words, it's not member managed, but it's manager managed. Little simple things like this to understand, because I'm not about to cast a vote or decide where your money is. That's contrary to what my role as a custodian, so the structure of your LLC shouldn't be that way. So you need to reach out and get a competent attorney to do that. And by the way, if you're following the rules, you're actually paying that attorney with your IRA funds. Because basically what happens is it's structured, and then the IRA custodian is asked to fund that LLC. So understand that the connection between your IRA changes. So now I'm the custodian of the IRA, that's true, but the IRA is actually inside that wrapper of an LLC. So now you have the responsibilities for record keeping. You have the responsibilities for reporting. If there's unrelated business income tax, which that's probably for a lesson a little bit later, or talk to one of us about that. But you may accrue that unintentionally. It still has to be paid whether you realize it or not. And so that has to come from your IRA to pay it. I am assiduously neutral on whether you should do this or not. And I'm not sure what the views are of everyone else here. It certainly should come with the training that you understand what prohibited transactions are, as Nathan talked about. You need to kind of understand that. And you need to behave yourself, because the wrapper around it doesn't protect you against any issues with the IRS. It's just a disregarded entity as far as taking a look at that. The benefits are huge, though. I mean, I will say, if you need to move quickly, as fast as all of us try to be, you don't get your money instantaneously through us. It takes a bit of time. And we're all in the business of speed, and we're trying to do that as fast as we can. There's no faster thing than being able to issue a wire from your own bank account that you hold in the LLC. But Nathan gave you, I guess, some good advice. I don't know if all of it was, but the good advice is that understand, take a look at the cost, because sometimes you might be doing this for cost, and if you're doing one or two, it's not worth it, because now you have the fee of structuring the LLC. You probably have annual fees that you're going to have to pay to the state that you created this in. You may have to pay an agency to hold that asset and report back. But it's your choice. It's not really my choice.
Exactly. So I just have a question. Well, Jeff might address this. So Jeff, would you have a checkbook controlled entity, like invest in that with your IRA?
Would I?
Yes.
The answer is yes, I would.
Okay.
The other answer is yes, I do.
Okay.
For me personally, it is a personal property trust that my self-directed Roth IRA owns.
Right.
And I am not the trustee. Another friend of mine who's highly trusted, his office is in another town away from me, is the trustee. And it is designed to do one thing: lend money. That's what I do with that thing. I lend money and I wrap deals.
Okay.
And that's the way I do it. The other comment I want to make is, what Nathan was saying earlier was not advice, it was education. Because Quest Trust, as a passive, independent, third-party custodian, is not allowed to give tax, legal, or accounting advice.
That's your job.
Go ahead.
I would just add a couple other cautionary items here. First of all, Jeff is well acquainted and well positioned to do this on his own. If you do take this on, realize that you're taking on a responsibility to do all of the minutia that maybe you would otherwise pay one of us to do. So you got to think about where your time is better spent. Is it better spent finding deals, doing deals, getting accomplished what you know best, or doing what possibly we know better? So all of those issues fall to you. Disqualified persons, prohibited transactions, do I not do? And I can tell you, in our firm, I look at all of the LLCs that want to transition to us, want us to be the custodians. And I can tell you, I look at probably 60 a year, 75 a year, maybe 5 actually are doing things the way they should do it. And I'll preface that by saying I'm looking at them, I look at it sort of jaded to begin with, because I figure one of the reasons they want to come to us is because they have an issue. And most of them do. And it could be something very simple as they don't even pay the filing fee in the state that they're registered. I mean, it's dopey little things like that. You know, a check written to cash. Okay, I mean, it's things that in the ordinary course of our businesses, we might not really think about, but in an IRA environment, it's lethal.
Yeah, you got to be careful. Okay, so let's talk about prohibited transactions. Maybe you want to start and give us just give us some ideas about that, and like how you like a good example maybe
Well,
of
I'll
something
give
that
you-
you could, you know, that everybody could relate to in regard to what's prohibited. And
Right. Well, I think everyone can agree. We could probably do a whole segment on prohibitive transactions because there's so many different elements of that, starting with family members. You know, can you go buy a house where your son is going to college and have him live in that house while he's at college? Yes or no?
no.
No, right, okay, so you got that. So, and it kind of runs down the family line, like grandparent, parent, son, and if you go aunt off to the side, for some reason that's not prohibitive. I had someone come up to me, lots of times I get people who want to buy a home in the panhandle of Florida, and they want to rent it out as an Airbnb, and they say, can we spend a week there at Christmas? No. If you benefit from this anyway, can you change a light bulb in that house? No. So you're kind of that. We had someone that came up to us and they told us they were so excited they bought a bar out of their IRA, their self-directed IRA, and he could drink all the free alcohol he wants. Don't tell anybody that.
I like that one. Sorry, you cannot go drink all the alcohol you want.
No, so basically, if you or your family members benefit in any way, shape, or form, you're fine lining that prohibitive transaction right there. Jack?
I agree. Anything else about that y'all would like to share? No?
I was going to make a comment that I'd noticed a lot of things that we talked about speed, and I want to talk about a common mistake, and maybe you could fill in a little bit and make fun of me a little bit, Glenn. But I think a big common mistake that people are, when they're, let's say we got to get it open, then we're going to open an LLC that's going to buy notes or something like that. What they do is they try to follow the steps at the custodian in a row, which is to open the account, move the money in, then start to work with the transactions team. You don't have to do that. You could do them at the same time. In other words, you're working to get the money over, and then at the same time, you're processing the LLC or the note or something like that. So your transactions team's working, and then as the money arrives, then it's ready to go. I know a lot of people are trying to like make it into steps when you can be doing both at the same time.
I'll have to completely agree with you, violently agree with you. What's great about this is most people don't understand that if you open a new account with any of us, there's a 7-day right of rescission, which means that you can't actually make an investment. We can't make an investment on your behalf because you can rescind it. So until 7 days goes by. So where that starts is when you put in your application and sign it. So we can do the funding, we can, like you said, queue up the transaction. That's a good point, Nathan. So do all these things simultaneously so that when the 7-day hits, your wire's going out. So that's a good idea.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
May I follow up on a point?
Yeah.
Jack said something earlier that I think was so elegant but so quiet that it slipped over everybody's head. And that is, a lot of times investors are trying to learn to do two things at once. Learn how to do a particular kind of transaction and then learn how to then do it with a self-directed retirement account. If you're not sure what you're doing, go do it with non-tax qualified money first. I made a bunch of loans with ordinary money, got the systems in place, then I funded my trust, and now I use those same systems to track all the loans outside of it. It's the same thing over and over again. I did a lot of houses inside of trusts before I put the first house, and it's the last house owned by an IRA trust. Not doing that again. It's too much of a pain in the neck compared to lending money.
All right, thank you. One of the types of accounts that I think there's several, but one in particular is the HSA, which, I know everybody maybe knows about it, but, I don't know how many people are really using it. And I'd just like for all of you to, just tell something about them and, something different than someone else has said. There's so many different facets of it, and it can be used for so many different things. You don't have to wait to retirement age on everything to use the money. One of the things that I'm always interested in is like, well, do you see that audited more than in other accounts, or is it kind of like under the radar?
I'll take a first shot at this, but I won't talk long. HSAs are the most powerful savings tool imaginable. And here's why. Even with IRAs, generally you're indexed out of being able to put a lot of money in once you achieve a certain earning. Not all of them, but a lot of them. We get indexed out once we start earning a little bit of money. HSA, you're never indexed out, no matter how much you need them. Now, not many people, everyone here knows what an HSA is. It's a health savings account, and it's partners with a high deductible health care plan. So it was done in the Bush administration. It was a way to kind of get people to take charge of their own health a little bit more. So you pay the first $1,000, $2,000, and then your premium's lower. But it came along with this savings account, which means that you can fund it pre-tax. You can fund it up, I believe the current is around $6,800 for a family. So you get to shove that in there. That's actually more than an IRA today. And it continues to grow without taxes. If it comes out for qualified medical expenses, then there's no tax on the distribution. But for me and my family, we never plan on using it ever because it's the best vehicle to save. Because it's never forced out, like with RMDs and general IRAs. And so I plan on keep funding it, and what I do is I partner with my IRA. So if I have a little bit of money, HSAs grow over time, but I can put $6,000 with a deal that I'm doing. If I'm doing notes, I can do a $26,000 note, $6,000 out of my HSA, $20,000 out of my IRA. This is what a lot of our clients do, so it's exciting. That keeps growing. It's like another IRA that you have.
Okay. That's great. Anybody else want to comment about HSA?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would just, I agree with everything Glenn said. Unfortunately, at least in our house, most people don't utilize that very well. The money goes in, and within 2 years, they're utilizing it for their medical expenses or what have you. And a lot of times, a strategy, if you have small expenses or you can pay them in other areas, you should allow that to build up. One of the beauties of this account is that you don't have to pay out of the account to cover that expense in the year that you incur the expense. So you can build those things up 2, 3, a ridiculous amount of years, quite frankly, and pay it out at some point in the future when you need something else, quite frankly. And the only, I think when Glenn meant index an IRA, I think what he was talking about is really the deductibility is limited as you get to a certain point. You can always put the money in, the $5,500 or the $6,500 in. It just might not be deductible, and you might create what's called basis inside that traditional IRA. But that HSA is a great tool.
Any other comment about HSAs? Okay.
I noticed, bunch of these great panel up here of IRA specialists. And as soon as you mentioned HSA, you could see them. We were all tensing up and getting on our chairs, and we get excited about them. And you're right, our clients aren't really educated enough to how to use them. But HSAs are super powerful. You put it in, tax deduction, you take it out tax-free. They mentioned that you could pick up receipts from years past. So as long as you had the HSA in place, and you get to keep it even after you stop using that type of health plan. So it's super, super flexible in different ways. But give you a perspective as to why you should do it. Going forward, the difference of having the haves and have-nots are going to change greatly by your ability to pay for medical. Our medical things are getting more and more advanced. Therefore, they're costing more, and you can do more and more things with science. And going forward, if you're going to build wealth, you should be building some of this wealth in a health savings account, period. Because if you get sick, if something happens to you, you will spend everything you have to get better. You realize that, right? And I just think that it is one of the building blocks. It's like owning a home, having a 401k. You should also have a health savings account, especially if you're a note investor and understand how to magnify it or make that money grow. That should be part of your wealth building.
And just quickly, understand that some of you that have employers or an employment situation, it's actually a good time to talk about this because December, January is when you change.
Yeah.
So this thought alone might be a reason to change your type of structure from a normal copay structure to a high deductible health care plan, because remember, they're partnered. You don't get the HSA without the high deductible plan, so maybe it's a good time for you to look at that.
Right, exactly. So, and just remember, like if you have a flexible spending account, like, and then you do change to the higher deductible health plan and go with the HSA, you can't have both, that's my understanding. So you might want to look at both and see what works best for you at this point in time. And like they said, I mean, the wonderful thing about it is that you can keep growing and growing this account for when you're going to need it later, right? I mean, you're going to get to that point and that age where you're going to need it, or you can go back and reimburse yourself for expenses you've had in the past, as long as you have a doctor's prescription on it and you've got it documented. You can go back and pay yourself for something 10 years ago. So it's a great account to have and just keep growing. I'd like to touch just for a moment on fair market value, because we all have to do that at the end of the year. We get lots of questions about how do we do fair market value.
Time's up, isn't it?
Huh? Time's up. No, it's not up yet. Okay, so we get lots of questions about it. I think, custodian has just a different idea about how to report it. And so I just want to say, like, from our point of view, we're looking at the fact, and especially here with our audience, and they're buying notes at a discount. Okay, we're not paying the unpaid balance. So how do we tell them a little bit about how they should report that? I know how I report it, but from your standpoint, we're trying to figure out, okay, like for us, we want it to be based on, at least on, right, correct? Like what we're paying for the asset, or as it amortizes down, right? So.
Look at me, moi.
You took the mic from me.
You look like you were holding it too long. That's all. But the fair market value is fair market value. So, in my view, and what we take is an independent evaluation. Quite frankly, many of the people who work through Colonial, we get those valuations from Colonial. If you think the note is worth $12, it's worth $12. But again, I think there's a lot of things that come into play to that. It's whatever the unpaid balance is. There's the number of years left and all of those things. But it's not just the unpaid balance, and I don't think IRS is looking just at the unpaid balance.
Okay, I'm just saying that, it seems like we've had some situations in the past where custodians do want you to report the value of that asset as the unpaid balance. So, and for us, we're looking at, well, we didn't, that's not what we paid, that's not what our investment amount is, so we're looking at more of, how we bought it at a discount, and then we're going from there, right?
What would somebody else pay you on the fair market to buy that asset from you? That's the fair market value. Martha, you and I have had a couple of these conversations off the record as to that, and it's really, what is that history of the note, the pay history? That's the most important thing, because it's based on the pay history is how somebody's going to make you an offer to buy it from you.
Okay. I mean, I just know we get a lot of questions about it, so I thought it'd be a good topic. Anybody else have anything they want to say about it? Okay.
I think that the atmosphere is changing a little bit. It really comes down to how we're regulated. Because I switched from being regulated by Kansas to now we're being regulated by Texas, right? And before, it was no big deal, even to that you could just tell us what the fair market value is, or what you thought the fair market value of your note was, and that was okay. There was no problem with that, because as long as we weren't doing a Roth conversion or distribution, then we would need to have a hard fair market value. But if it was just sitting in the account, there's no tax penalties or there's no RMDs. There was really, just, hey, tell us what you think it's worth. as I switched over to Texas, the regulators are telling me this. They don't like my soft value. So they just said, you need documentation. And so I tried to drill it down, like, so what do you mean documentation? What is it that we need? And they just said, you need documentation. You mean I get to decide what documentation is? Yes, we just need to see some documentation. Submit an amortization schedule with it and say you bought it at a discount, you still think it's worth a discount. That's documentation.
Okay.
Just got to have some paper with it, with your statement as to what it's valued. Covers it 99% of the time.
Yeah. Well, I think ultimately what you want is something from a third party. If you self-evaluate, that's not going to be as good as if you get something from another organization that's an independent arbiter, if you will, of the value of that thing. But one of the industry groups, Rita, who's had a fair amount of discussions with IRS about what exactly are you looking for. The reality is IRS doesn't even know what they're looking for yet, quite frankly. They're the only time that value becomes critically important is if you die, and at that point it's not your issue anymore anyway, it's somebody else's. If you're taking a distribution of the asset, if you're RMD, so when it's being transferred in. So I don't think that they've really come to grips with what it is that they're looking for. And most of what I've seen and most of what I hear really gets down to some independent person giving you an evaluation of what that's worth. Does it need to be a formal appraisal? No, I don't think so for these interim valuations. If you're coming to something that's a taxable event, I would get something that you can actually hang your hat on.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, if you notice, Martha, no one was running to the mic for FMVs. That three-letter word, nobody wanted to talk about it. And I'll tell you why. I mean, it's a struggle for us as custodians to talk to our clients and ask them for it. I mean, quite frankly, and sometimes that may be just recalcitrant clients, but it may also be they don't know how, or they're confused and they don't know how. And I'm not sure we're benefiting the people out there that much, because we're being a little bit circumspect, because the IRS has, as Jack said. Here's what I would suggest that you do, and we have the same issue with real estate that we have on notes, which is who's going to value the real estate. Well, you got a lot of ways to do real estate, and I'll just use this as a quick example. I mean, sure, you can go get a real estate appraisal, and in Florida, that's going to cost you around $500 for every house. So you're really going to do that every year with every house that you own in your IRA. I own a lot of houses in my IRA, so that's not practical. Well, probably the easiest way is you can go to the tax assessor's office, but how realistic is that? Well, it's something. It's directionally better than nothing. At least it's not your number, it's somebody else's. An easy way that you can solve that, and we tell our clients, is go get a broker's opinion letter. It's a third party. They deal in real estate. They're more knowledgeable, certainly, than probably the guy in the appraisal office. At least it's more up to date. And the IRS has never come back and pushed back and said, no, that's not good. So if you were to translate that to notes, first of all, just call Eddie Speed. He'll do it for you. No, I'm just kidding. You're right. Humor doesn't work well off the stage. I noticed that. Not well at all. But in any case, so I'll stop. But in any case, what you should go to somebody, that's right, third party, but a knowledgeable third party. Someone who does business in notes.
Yeah.
Someone who could look at the top 2 or 3 criteria of that note and say, well, I would probably say that's worth about 70%.
Exactly.
Of its true value.
That's what we do personally in our accounts.
I don't see as a custodian, I don't see the IRS pushing back on that and saying, no, you need to pay for a qualified appraisal of a note.
The last comment I'll make on the fair market value is this. Know your balance sheets. I track my investments. It's the only way I know, am I gaining ground? And I track every one of them. And I know what it's worth. And that gives me half of what I need to report for fair market value, because I'm paying attention to my own investments, because I'm being diligent with my investments. And I suggest you all do the same thing.
Great. So maybe you guys might give us something you've seen that's been over the last year or so that's been a really creative note investment. Something that might be different than what we've Todd, or any ideas about that?
I mean, you guys are the most creative note people I know. So we get super creative notes from your students and the think tanks that go from them. But
Well, I'll give you a simple example. And what I liked is one of our clients' sons just graduated from the University of Florida in Gainesville. And he liked what his dad was doing, which was buying and selling real estate. He says, I don't want to go, and he finished near the top of his class, I don't want to go into conventional business, even though a lot of my classmates are, getting $60,000, $70,000 deals. I want to learn what my dad's doing. So it's a wonderful thing when your child wants to do that. So, and his dad said, I'll help you a little bit, but you got to find your own lane. So this is what he decided to do. So he would actually look up on Google Maps and on the tax assessor's website to find all the vacant land in all the cities around Orlando that was not in a development. So like downtown lots that were vacant. Then he would figure out who owned the house on either side. He'd contact the landowner. A lot of times in Florida, that's an out-of-state owner. Find out if they were tired of paying taxes on a vacant lot. He'd negotiate something for them. And then he'd go to the homeowners on either side, the homeowners, right, the ones that had it homesteaded, and say, how would you like to buy that lot next door to you? And they never thought about looking at it themselves. So he structures the deal so that, generally speaking, he could get these things for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, right? And plus the guy no longer has to pay taxes on it. And he sells them for $5,000 or $6,000 down, and then structures a note, usually double to triple the cost, stretched over 12 to 15 years. And so he's putting together a nice little cash flow, about another $100 a month, $125 a month. And I thought, this isn't a complex strategy, it's a simple one. But it fits to this concept that is kind of taught here from the stage, is get as much of you back on the principal that you took out, and then just let it be an income in addition to everything you did. So a very simple idea, but one I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, that is really brilliant. As a matter of fact, there are several cities across the United States where, when they did have high foreclosures, and then, homes had to be demolished, and the city, ended up with the lots, and they really made some good trades. The people that bought those lots, they made some good trades with the city buying them. So something else?
Yep, we had an account holder who, he had a note in his IRA, and he sold a partial out, and it was a 7-year stream of income that he sold out. He took the rest of it, got a fair market value on it, converted it to Roth, and now it sits in his Roth for about 20 cents on the dollar. And when it paid early, and all of that money went back into his Roth, tax
awesome.
free. That's a permanent timing difference in the
Right.
tax world.
That's awesome. All right, thank you. We need to finish up here. I think it's time for somebody else to get started. Mitch is getting started. All right, y'all, thank the panel for joining us today.